a guided tasting of Calvados, which is distilled cider from Normandy, and American apple brandy, which is apple brandy distilled in the U.S., will be taking place on November 4th as part of Cider Days 2.0. It's actually the kickoff event. We'll be tasting 4 different brands of Calvados and 3 different brands of American apple brandy. And during this guided tasting, we'll be sipping away and discussing how it is distilled, how it's made, and the process from different regions of the world, one being France and the other the U.S. In this episode, we're going to be discussing Calvados and how one would approach it in terms of the aroma, what is in the glass, and what elements are you looking for that really drive the aroma. And we're going to be hearing that from one of the top master distillers, Étienne Dupont of Domaine Dupont.
Hey, apples, make them pop. Pop, 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 pop.
Hey, my name is Rhea Windcaller, and I am the producer and cider MC of this weekly podcast, where we speak with makers, cider enthusiasts, and folks within the cider trade from around the world.
Hip, hip, hooray!
Welcome if you're new to this here podcast, and hello if you are a regular subscriber. It's so nice to have everybody out there in Ciderville at this moment in time because, well, in the Northern Hemisphere, it is cider making time, and there's a real buzz in the air around that. And to my friends and all of the folks down there in the Southern Hemisphere, you are starting to enter spring. So how cool is that? What an amazing world we live on. Wherever you are, I do hope you're doing well. This week, while this episode 337 is going live, I am on the French cider tour in Normandy and Brittany, visiting my friend Étienne Dupont at Domaine Dupont, which is on the Route du Cider, right in Normandy. And Étienne is one of those folks who's really made a mark in this whole region as quite, well, basically responsible for Cider Expo, as we would say in the U.S., that took place in 2020. That was a only in-person event that took place, and then the pandemic happened. That was the last time I saw him, so I'm so excited to be in France right now, being able to see all these folks I haven't seen in 2 years, and being with a group from both the U.S. and Canada. Just an amazing time. And best of all, I'm getting to taste their cider, their Poire, and their Calvados and Pommeau. Ooh la la.
Bravo!
Yeah, I'm going to take that little bravo because it feels like a major accomplishment to have a cider tour overseas after like 2 years of a major pause and having folks both from the Canada and the U.S. attending, having it be sold out, and just being able to luxuriate in that moment. I think it's a big win for cider overall that, talk about staying power. So here we are. So this actual episode this week is a replay from episode 265. I've cut out some of the other parts. It's kind of brand new on the beginning and the end, but bringing it to you so that my hope is that you will, again, get that little kick again to say, okay, oh, that's what's going on there with Calvados, especially if you're going to be attending Cider Days 2.0. So I'm going to take a little pause here and let me come back with a little more info about what this is all about. On the first weekend of November since 1994, Cider Days has been taking place in Western Massachusetts, and it was started to really bring people to this region and celebrate cider in a time when there was only a handful of commercial makers in the U.S. of A. And not many folks knew anything about cider, not how it was made or what it would actually be once it was fermented and how to taste that. So over the years, over almost 30 years now, this ongoing event has been taking place. And kind of like my visit with Étienne, well, we all had that mega pause. So this year, 2022, after that mega pause, Cider Days is being rebooted by Cider Chat, who is producing Cider Days 2.0. It's 2 days of events on the first weekend of November in my special spot of Ciderville, Western Massachusetts. as always, there's going to be local orchards and mills celebrating and having their events. So if you have a special cidery that you know and love, check out their sites and see what they're doing. For Cider Days 2.0, we have the kickoff event, which is the Calvados and American Apple Brandy guided tasting, right? It's a guided tasting presented by Ambrosia Borowski, who is from Chicago and is both a brandy and cider expert, and myself, Rhea Windcaller, presenting to you both the history of these two amazing drinks. And I say they're two, but really they're one, but made different ways. So that's some of the confusion there. Calvados can only be called Calvados if it's made in France. It's distilled the same way American apple brandy is, but there are some particulars of it. And through that tasting, you'll be able to discover the nuances that go on between the two different countries and the approaches and the apples. It's really going to be fascinating. We'll have a little bit of charcuterie, too, to kind of mesh it all together. We're sponsored by both the Cabot Cheese Company in Vermont and Veroni, which is based in Italy, sending some charcuterie over for the special event. It's going to all take place in downtown Greenfield, Massachusetts. And part of this week's episode, talking about Calvados, is because the past couple episodes we've been talking about American apple brandy with both Lisa Lair Dunn of Lairs and Company, which is renowned for Applejack. I mean, they put Applejack on the map in America. They're the oldest distillery in the country, dating so far back, over 300 years ago. Okay, so they're the oldest distillery in America, which just blows my mind. And we're going to have them, and we're going to have Flag Hill Winery and Distillery in New Hampshire, which is the oldest distillery in New Hampshire. So that's a whole other story. And if you haven't heard about either of these folks, or I should say companies, you should go back, just like last week's episode, because that featured Flag Hill Winery and Distillery. And it was an amazing conversation, really bringing us through the whole process and really easy to follow language. And then a couple of episodes back, it was a two-part series on Lairs and Company with Lisa Lair Dunn, who's 9th generation. Her son Gerard was there. He's 10th generation. And her father, Larry Laird, 8th generation, was also on that podcast too. So there's a lot on American apple brandy. I want to say one more thing, in case you haven't heard or you just kind of didn't notice. There is now a third American distiller that's going to be featured at that kickoff event. And the super cool thing about this particular distillery is that it's based in my special spot of Ciderville, Massachusetts. So we'll have a little bit of local terroir to complement all these other different apple brandies and Calvados in our glasses. This is going to be mind-boggling. And with that, we're also going to be able to see the difference between products such as brandy that are aged in different size casks. At Beaver Pond Distillery, it's kind of like a nano distillery in some ways because he is using small format casks. And you'll hear more about that as we get closer, but do know, like, such as Flag Hill, it's like 65 gallons, or over in the Calvados region of France, they're using large format barrels too, and so is Lairs and Company. But in this case, small casks. Pretty interesting. And the apple brandy from Beaver Pond has been aging for 5 years. So that just kind of like sends the whole like gourmand in me going, yow, that's going to be cool to be able to see the difference on that, be able to taste that, converse about it, and just have a wonderful experience enjoying all these amazing brandies and Calvados at Cider Days 2.0. Do know that tickets are now live. They are selling. It's the kickoff event. It sold out in the past. I expect it to sell out again. Don't wait. Start making your plans now for the first weekend of November. This is a place to be. It's always been the mecca for cider makers, both commercial and amateur, ever since it started. This event this year is going to be just amazing. We have that kickoff event on Friday night. On Saturday night, we have a cider dinner featuring 6 women producers from the East Coast. You can find out all that info and the other workshops that weekend, including a cider pop-up event that's free, open to the public, with cider authors attending, at ciderchat.com, or just Google Cider Days 2.0. Look for the schedule. You'll find the links for the tickets. It's pretty easy to do. if you're able to listen to a podcast, I know you could find the tickets for Cider Days 2.0. I really hope to see you there. And that brings me back to this week's featured guest, Étienne Dupont. We're going to be rolling back time a little bit, going to that episode that was pre-recorded in 2020 and bringing you through. And he's going to talk about the delicacies, and you'll be able to tell that I'm kind of wowed through it all because here I am, like speaking to the master. We were in Caen. I had arrived to go to Cider Expo, and we had a little bit of time before we go out to dinner that night. And so we went over to this shop, and we met Benoit, who was working there, and just went through the tasting. So you're going to hear both Etienne, you're going to hear Benoit. You're going to hear us make mention also of Marie Morose. That's who Etienne is talking about. Marie has taken the position of the cider maker at Domaine Dupont. In fact, she and her husband are both cider makers. Her husband's name is Antoine Morose, and he has his own domain right up the road. And we're visiting that on the French Cider Tour, and I think we might be there the day that this is going live. I'm not sure. Actually, no, this is Wednesday, the 21st of September. It's Equinox, and we're actually at Mont Saint-Michel in the Musée de Poire today. So we've already saw those folks by this time it goes live. But that, that doesn't matter one way or the other than it's really freaking cool to be at Mont Saint-Michel on the fall equinox. But I jump ahead of myself all the time. This is how excited I am right now. And I'm pretty excited to re-listen to this myself because I've learned so much every time I talk to Etienne about Calvados, about the process and how you approach a glass. It can feel a little overwhelming if you're not used to it. What is in a glass of Calvados? What should you be looking for? And what's the difference between a good one or one that's mediocre? Or is there such a thing as a mediocre Calvados? Well, here's the short answer. Yes, there is. But until you really know the difference, you might be going down the wrong path, and that's why we're doing this. We're going to begin by hearing from Étienne Dupont of Domaine Dupont as he talks about the 3 qualities of aroma for Calvados.
3 sources of aroma. The fruit, the yeast, and the cask in which it has been kept. If it is new wood, you get the taste of the sap, which is vanilla, more or less vanilla. If it is an old cask, if it has contained rum or anything else, it's going to take aromas from that liquid.
On this wall of Calvados here.
Classical Calvados.
Classical.
Yes.
Okay.
With cask having contained cider, Calvados, mainly.
Okay.
And not very often new wood.
Not very often, okay.
And, when you use new wood to age a brandy, depending on the size of the cask. You can be ready in 3 years or 20 years. The regulation for whiskies to be aged in bourbon cask because you have a special oak which is not very tight.
Oak? The American oak, yeah.
Our oak is more tight than yours. Yours is less tough, and the aging process is quicker because there is an exchange between the air and alcohol in your cask.
And the oak that you're using, the French oak, is that called Limousin? Or?
There is oak in Limousin, but they use it for wine.
Okay, so you're not using
because it is tight.
But you're not using that for the
No,
Calvados?
we use oak from Vallée de la Loire, where the soil is sandy, and the oak grows very quickly, and the wood is not too tight, and the exchange is... So, the eldest Calvados we sell here is 1946. 1946.
Yes. So, 1946, would that be...
Post-war.
Yes. It must have been hidden. How did it survive?
No,
was post-war.
1946 they were...
But how did the trees survive the war? Were the orchards kind of like run over, or they're like where your family's domain was?
No, they were not cutting trees. We were not bombed that much. What they bombed is...
the big buildings.
Well, soldiers, they were killing each other.
Yeah.
What they were destroying is where the source of energy was kept.
Mm-hmm. Right.
If you have no energy, no petrol, no electricity, no...
They didn't
difficult
care.
to live
They
in.
didn't care.
Yeah.
So a Calvados from 1946, would you expect that to be cut into something else? Do you take like Solera, where you're like taking a little bit of the 1946 Calvados and adding it into a younger Calvados?
No.
It's just a straight barrel from 1946.
Yes,
and so
yes.
It's very select.
If not, there would be no millésime, yes.
Okay.
No, it's...
100%.
The
Yeah.
guy, I know him.
The man who made that.
Yes.
Is he still? He's
Yes.
still here. What's the name of the producer?
Roger Giard.
Oh, okay. I'm not seeing the name. Oh, okay. Yes, Giard.
He's a good one.
Yes, it is.
Do you want to try some very old Calvados?
Of course.
Yes! Try some 6 years old, okay? One from Donfront.
Attendez, parce que je sais pas. How many do you want to taste? Well, you can spit if you want.
6, 12 or...
Yeah, we just have dinner and go to bed. So.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm good. I'm good.
If you are okay,
Yes.
we can try some Calvados, some young Calvados, so about 6 or 7 years old, okay? From Donfront, from Calvados contrôlé, and with a double from Pays d'Auge, so with a double distillation. Then we can try a middle age, about 12 years old, and at the end we will try some very old Calvados. Okay? It's okay for you?
Très bien.
Perfect.
So Donfrontais.
First one is from the Pacori family, from Donfront, you know Montilly.
I do know Pacari. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
then if you want...
I haven't had I haven't had their Calvados.
Okay, so this one is about 75% of pear cider.
Yes.
Okay. This one is from Garnier family. It's the fifth of generation. Okay, and 100% of apple, 6 years old. Okay, and last one. Okay. Do you know Dupont family?
Domaine Dupont.
Did you ever try Calvados from us?
Have I what?
Did you ever try Calvados from us?
Yes.
2 years ago?
Yes. Absolutely. I still remember a very special bottle that you gifted to me and our group brought to Mont Saint Michel.
Yes.
And we toasted Jérôme with that bottle. That was, I think it was, yes. I could still taste it.
So don't do it again, you know it.
Okay, so first one. Tenez, je vais vous apporter l'autre.
First question, is there any acetate d'éthyle?
Any acidity left? Is that what you said?
Acetate d'éthyle? Does it smells acetone?
Acetone, yeah.
A little bit.
Just a little bit, yeah.
So if you are a professional buyer, you don't buy it.
Yes.
This one has no nose is better.
Also from Donfrontais.
Same producer.
Oh, same producer.
Yeah.
Okay. What are you noticing? You noticing the acetone too?
Yeah, I think so.
We are fighting acetone. Sorry.
Well, that's okay.
We are too much professional.
Oh, I appreciate that. Now, is that at what stage is that coming into the Calvados?
All life.
All life, yeah. It could
Nothing
happen.
you can do.
Because I get it here, but it's not as pronounced. But
Bah oui.
Sometimes with humans, you can hope that they're getting better when they are older.
but not
But
always true.
Not with the
It-
not with the Calvados.
When they are older, if they have a default, the default can be disguised by taste that you can find in the wood that,
Yeah,
yeah,
you can mask.
a bit of sugar, a bit of caramel, a bit of
yeah.
gravy, and you know how it comes? When you distillate cider, you must wait for the cider to be fermented. There are two micro
Organisms.
yes that can ferment, bacteria and yeast. Yeast is a good way to ferment, and yeast can be very active, and if the fermentation is quick because the temperature is all right, then bacteria has no chance to live. But if fermentation is lengthy, then bacteria, which is very resisting, is going to eat sugar, and when you distillate it, you have it, and you have it for all your life.
So, if I made some cider, and if it starts off acetone, don't even think about distilling it because it's not even worth it.
You will have burning.
Have a burning
brandy.
Now, when you make cider, you make it a certain way. But if you're making cider to then distill to Calvados,
Yes.
it's a different process.
Yes, completely.
And
We ferment in 3 days, 4 days for Calvados.
very quickly.
Yes.
Very quickly
As quickly as we can.
to avoid
Yes.
the acetone. This people thinking about distilling a product that they don't really want to drink as cider, they shouldn't distill it because it's not going to be.
No,
It's not worth it.
it's a way to use what you are left with.
Yeah.
And even if you are producing pommeau with it, it's not going to be good because it's very... So when you want to distillate, you produce cider to distillate.
Right.
And no sulfite.
No sulfite with
Because
For cider
sulfite
Calvados.
is concentrated by distillation. And you smell it very well, very easily.
I see.
Ah oui?
The question is, why do I say, because there are producers that are willing to keep their cider before distilling? My answer is only because it is by tradition. Because their father was doing like that.
Yeah. But maybe not a good choice for the final project. Yeah.
And they are organized like that. We say we want to do that to produce good Calvados. Not only we say it, we know how to do, but we must be able, that is to say, we must have the right tanks, the ways to keep the temperature correct. We must be equipped to do it. Not only in our man, it must work.
Right. So the right tanks for Calvados, how would they differ for cider? Is there a difference, or that you have tanks available to
Yes.
make it?
Yes.
Yeah. Because you're still using the same equipment.
No, we're not using
totally
the same
different.
equipment. We produce cider to distillate. It ferments quickly, and we must be sure that we can keep the tank completely full with no contact with air until the distillation. Because bacteria, they are anaerobic. They need air to live.
So 3-day fermentation, that means, and that's no addition of any cultured yeast.
No.
It's just a rolling ferment.
Yes.
At like what kind of temperature? A warm temperature?
22, 23.
Okay.
No fermentation below 8.
No.
Low fermentation between 8 and 16. And above 16, it's okay.
3 days, it's just such a young... it's hard to believe that it would be finished fermenting.
It's very fast.
Very fast. And is that because the apples that you're bringing in have been
It's
like
a question of temperature, nothing else.
just temperature? Temperature in terms of, okay, today's a day that we're going to press because it's a good temperature day?
No, you press because apples are ripe,
Right, of
and
course.
you produce, and if it is cold, you have to warm your cider. If your apples are ripe, don't wait to press because they will be rotten. And if you produce cider to distillate with rotten apples, you will fill it in the glass.
I'm still wrapping my mind around the 3 days because I think of 3 days with a cider that I've made. It might still be bubbling, or it tastes so young. It's not conditioned. It's not finished, and when you pour it into,
It's not clear.
it's not clear. It's very rustic.
Yes, but if apples are clean, if apples were clean, what is unclear is bit of skin, bit of pulp, and
Right.
if you distillate that, it give you tasty.
Taste. So you do
Yes.
you want that in there.
Yes.
So you're all the lees.
Yes.
The lees, you distill all that.
Yeah, but there are two types of lies. There are heavy lies that
Right.
you don't distillate.
Right.
You know what is the equivalent
The gross
to
lees.
the brown hat? That we do not distillate. But fine lies, yes we do.
You do, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, certainly at 3 days, that's all you have would be fine, I think. Or no, you have probably some heavy. You do
yes,
have heavy.
yes.
So you're siphoning.
You know when you are baking,
Yes.
you have farine and water, and you add yeast, and 2 hours or 3 hours.
Oh. Yes. Same thing.
Because the temperature is right.
Wow.
It's same thing for
That's,
fermentation.
I didn't realize it. That's quite informative. Thank you, because that changes my concept of how it's been made. I had no idea. Although I don't think all producers do that. Is what I have a sense that
But
they
there are
do
not very many in Normandy.
And with in Domfronte, where they're dealing with Poire has such a propensity, or it often goes more acetone than
Yes.
cedar. It's much harder to manage in that way, which is probably why they're cutting it with.
There are two reasons. Because in the farms in the old days they were very badly equipped. There are 1 or 2 casks. And the cask was not as a good size.
Okay.
So they were producing their liquid, pouring it in the cask, and maybe there was air on it. But it was the only cask. Now we have tanks with floating tap, which are not very expensive. So you
keeps
have
like a
always
variable
the liquid.
tank.
Yes.
Yeah. It's a cask like that?
No, it's a
the
fiberglass.
Okay.
yeah.
Oh, yes, I saw
But,
those
but
tanks, yes.
it's better than a bad cask.
Huh. Wow.
Bad cask give bad taste. To use a cask, the cask must be clean and has contained good things. If not, you take it.
When you are moving the 3-day-old cedar
Yes.
to be distilled, how do you're pumping it into the still
No, not directly.
and avoiding oxygen?
You have to come back
Curious.
home.
Yeah.
We have concrete tanks.
Concrete.
Yes,
Oh.
close to the press. Close to the press. You remember the building?
I know where the press is. I don't think I saw the concrete tanks.
Inside the building there are concrete tanks.
Oh, I didn't see that. Yeah.
That's where we ferment the cider.
Ah.
And between that building and the distillery, there is an underground pipe
No kidding. Wow.
and another tank where we store the cider to distillate. So the racking is done at this moment.
That way. Wow. Underground. If I recall, like the up by the tasting room is where your still is, right?
Yes.
And the pressing is
Yeah.
down. That's a long
There are
pipe.
200 meters, yes. about.
What kind of pipe do you use for
Plastic.
that? Plastic, which is brilliant. It doesn't have to be that deep underground.
No, it is what, 1
Wow.
meter?
Wow, I love that. I had no idea.
So now you've got 6 years old
6 years old.
Ça, c'est bien,
with
ça.
a simple distillation from the Garnier family. Okay?
Celui-là,
100%.
Celui-là, il l'a pas.
100% made with apple cider.
There's a whole lot of contemplation that takes place when one is tasting Calvados. So I have cut out that section here, and we're going to go directly to my next question. In Domaine versus Pédoge, there's two different types of distillation. In Pédoge, is it a
Double distillation.
double distillation and a single distillation in Domaine?
With double distillation, you can separate heads and tails. That you cannot do with a column.
Right.
You take everything.
And,
But if everything is good, it's okay.
and you're not using a column still.
No.
You're using a
Pot still.
hot steel. Yeah.
Catherine.
This is what we would call a fine, right? It's young, so you would classify it as fine. As
Oh, it's more than that.
Fine is
Fine is 3 years. Celui-là, il a quel âge?
6 ans.
6 years. It's an old age.
Yes.
Oh,
Fine
gosh,
is
okay.
the youngest
It's already old, yes.
categories of Calva you can find. It's about 2 and 3 years old.
It gets a little confusing when you go into, I'm trying to see, Audage.
Yeah.
Then it's like, what year is it? Yeah, it's kind of like depends on the producer,
The
right?
denomination is done to
More than
make
6.
you lost. Yes.
Well, that's a good thing. You know,
Yeah.
sometimes that's part of the goal is to get lost into the Calvados. Why not? Yeah,
So you have to rely on your own palate.
yeah. Good. And
Elle est un petit peu grasse et amère.
are you using wood
Yes.
and not moving? Because I know in this region that there is kind of a push to go more away from the wood versus is it electric or gas fired still? That's gas.
No, we are gas.
Oh, you're gas. Okay. All right.
But wood has no quality. When you cook, does it make a difference if you... I don't speak about barbecues.
I know what you're saying. Well, for heat, no, but I know I was visiting this producer, and he was very adamant he didn't want to change it. His son wants to go to gas, and I don't know if they have in the time I visited. And I was there while they were distilling with the wood, and there's a certain smell in the air. I was trying to figure out, and sometimes it's like smoking the liquid a little bit.
Yeah.
So I could kind of get that
You are a
tradition.
good nose. Yes, that's the only way it can work.
Yeah.
It must be smoky in the
in the room,
Yes.
and so it's kind of coating
because the heating system is very irregular.
variable. Yes, yeah.
So it's difficult to
Maintain
know
it.
where you are in the distillation.
A lot of work to stay on it. You have to
Yes.
be a good fire tender and have
Yes.
done it for many years to keep it steady. Which somebody who has been doing it for many years would know how to keep it steady. I had that hunch. That's
it's
the
a
only
lot of
reason.
work because the wood has to be here, close to the fire.
The source, yeah.
It has to be dry,
Yeah, well
and if
seasoned.
possible the same wood. Because if you
Right.
put
Yeah.
peuplier, the fire is not the same than with
Right,
oak.
right. Yeah, popular versus oak.
I did distillate for 10 years with wood.
That was a lot of work, and you become very smoky. You come in and you're smelling it, and probably not as good for the
It
environment.
was nice to cook apples in the on the braise, the red charbon.
Okay, all right. I wasn't sure. I didn't remember when I last visited. If
No, it's gas.
okay, all right, wonderful, great.
So, and third one.
We are fighting on other things,
Yes,
not
well,
not on wood.
you have to pick and choose.
And
Oh, here we go.
we are not going to come back.
And
Ça, c'est 2 ans, c'est ça?
ça, c'est hors d'âge.
Ah ouais.
Ouais,
Beaucoup
il est clair, hein?
celui-là.
No, we have to kind of
So,
guess, huh, on this one.
The
Audage.
same age, so hors d'âge from Dupont family, okay?
Okay,
Which is very clear.
very clear. So the other ones
Je
we're
fais la
seeing
question aussi, mais
kind of like
il y a toujours une énorme différence entre le hors d'âge et le 12 et en
Amber.
termes de robe, ouais.
the nose. Before I bring the glass to my nose, it's just popping out. Audage, we're saying, how many years is this then?
6, 7 years old.
6 or 7?
More than 6 years.
More than 6 years.
And that is more than 2 years.
It's not what I had from the earlier ones, especially the ones that are a little off, that really burning sensation. It's kind of like a whiskey that's like a little too overpowering. And the beauty of the Calvados is this, when made well, it's smooth and really...
Whiskies are smooth also.
Well, yes, but
They can be smooth.
yeah, they should be. I think
Every
they
brandy
should
should
be.
be smooth.
Right. I'm just talking about the cheap whiskeys I've drank.
Every brandy should be carrier of aromas, elegant aromas.
And this is exactly what you get before the nose, comes close to the glass. It's just,
The pleasure is when you look at it, when you smell it, and when you have it in your mouth. When you swallow it, it's finished. Un petit peu gras aussi.
Oui, c'est vrai
Perfect,
qu'il y a un peu...
perfect.
C'est bizarre pour un, mais c'est bon.
very nice.
And to continue...
It's a good education. I appreciate it. This is preparing me for this.
Tomorrow.
Yes, I know.
But I am too severe, too...
No, that's good. It's good. No,
too critic. I
you-
do critic too much.
it's not too. You have to be. If you're not, then
So now, we will try some 12 years old Calvados, exactly from the same producers.
Okay.
Than the 6 year, than the
Right.
previous one. Okay. We will try about another 12 years old, which is from Camus. Do you know?
That you will meet him in New York, Camus.
oh, okay, great.
So, first will be the Pacori,
Pakori.
but 12 years old. Okay. Vous voulez pas le goûter celui-là, Étienne, hein?
Pacori, non, je connais. I know him.
So now I'm getting the colors getting a little bit deeper, intense.
Yes.
But those other ones that we had were kind of about the same, except for the Dupont that we just had. But so that's to be expected as it is in the cask longer, of course.
Yes.
So we're
Well,
going to...
cask longer or the size of the cask. Big cask or a small cask.
Right,
It
it will
makes a
affect.
lot of difference.
Yes, of course. And is there a preferred cask size for... at Domaine Dupont, you have...
400 liters.
Yeah.
We should have 225. But it's more expensive. The cost is about the double. But it's better to buy. We are beginning maybe to buy smaller cask.
And why would you be doing that?
To gain time.
Smaller cask, more contact surface to
And
the oak?
when we sell something, we sell to professional, to pro, not amateur. Amateur, they buy here, but they don't buy. Before our Calvados goes in your country, there is a pro who buys it,
I see.
and he can judge what we do. We can explain him.
How does one become professional with Calvados? If you're not a producer, do you do? Are there education courses in Normandy to study
No.
tasting? Other than tasting a lot,
You taste a lot, but to produce whiskey, Armagnac, Cognac, Calvados, Brandy, it's all the same job. You begin with a liquid coming from a fruit or grain, and the process is the same.
Mm-hmm.
You turn sugar in alcohol, and then you extract alcohol from everything.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm going to just... I'm kind of curious of tasting the other ones to kind of compare that one because I like...
What do you think of the last one? Just
The last one? I like it. The finish feels a little furry to me.
Yeah.
Furry. Just incomplete,
Yeah.
I guess is the way to say it.
Do you want to try the Calvados with a simple distillation from Garnier, 12 years old, on just the two from Pays d'Auge, Dupont and Cave?
Is that where is that from?
It's the same than the second one you just tried before.
Oh.
But the second one was 6 years, and this one is 12 years.
Of course, we go through the whole
And
process. Just a little bit. That's perfect. Is it this bottle here?
Yes, it's
May
this
I
one.
see that one?
You've got some pepper on your tongue, and you don't find it?
I find this more pleasing than the last one
Yeah.
I had. Yeah. Yeah. It's that I like the nose. I find it softer. So that's quite nice, and I think that's what you're looking for, a little more softness and even softness on the palate, so you could really get the fruit.
Yes, perfumes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It shouldn't be harsh. So in that way, yeah, there's more complexity to it, and so I'm not being left alone at the finish.
Now, I think it's the 12 years old from Dupont. I think it's the best seller
I bet.
in this shop. Je voulais même pas proposer.
You put it in your mouth, you keep it in your mouth, and it goes up. Aromas are going up. Il est more invading.
More inviting?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes. The nose feels a little fusel to me.
Fusel.
Fusel.
C'est ouais, c'est goudron. Tar.
It kind of surprised me. I didn't get as much fruit on the
Gazole.
nose. Gazole.
Gazole, no? Fusel.
Fusel. A little. It's not hot,
Ah,
but a little.
Fusel.
Ah oui, c'est pour ça que je disais qu'il était limite.
F-U?
Yes, fusel. You're not going to want to look it up. So it's like the alcohol. The alcohol.
Yeah.
It was coming up more.
Volatile, oui.
Ouais.
Volatile, yes. So you could say that
Il
too.
y a un peu de volatile.
And so why is that happening? Because that kind of surprises
Quality
me.
of cider.
Okay. So were you getting
I
that
know.
too?
Yes. I
You
told
know.
him he was limit.
Okay. Yeah.
If you are an amateur of rum, it's nothing.
Yeah.
If you like whiskey, is very well done. That
Yeah.
out.
So I guess I was spot on. I want to be honest. You know what I'm getting? I was kind of surprised.
I know. We know.
Yeah.
I know.
Okay. Yeah.
I know.
But it's kind of perfect because it's probably in a price point that people could buy it, right? And then feel like they're getting something. But we had an earlier Dupont, which was, I really enjoyed that. I thought it was more, provide more characteristics of the fruit.
Yes. We are entitled to control the fermentation of the cider since 6 years. Before it was forbidden to control the temperature, so we had to wait. And probably this one has been distilled much later than now.
Interesting. Well, that's the beauty of, it's like a time capsule. So it tells you what was going on at that moment in time with regulations or the climate or the orchard, and that's fantastic.
And now we are obliged to wait for 3 weeks before we distillate. Why? It is
so you can't.
So we are losing 3 weeks.
Wow! Even though you want to distill it 3 days after.
Yes.
Oh my God! That must give you a heart attack.
Yes.
Ay ay ay! And that's required by EDAC. Or
EDAC and INAO, IPG, the government that give appellation d'origine contrôlée, AOP.
Oh, okay. Huh.
We must follow rules to produce. No. And at the domain we are checked by Marie. 3 weeks.
3 weeks. Ay ay ay. Okay. Well, there you go. Well, I was a little shy to say anything,
No,
I have to say, because I am with the grandpapa here. I must be careful.
I would not have believed your criticism.
You want to try an older one?
Last one? And
Last one, yes, okay.
Okay, so do you want to compare a 20 years old from Dupont and an 18 years old from Camus, for example?
And that would be the same thing, yes.
Okay.
Sure. Well, this is a good education for me.
Yeah, but this one is greasy.
Greasy, I get
in
that.
your palate. Mm-hmm. You have it?
Yes, thank you for that. Yeah, I get it too.
Thank you. I'm trying to defend mine.
Oh, you should. Just in case you missed that exchange there, Etienne was joking about defending his own Calvados against the others, which is what one expects a producer to do, of course. And it should be noted that Dupont's Calvados, Domaine Dupont's Calvados, is a premier Calvados. It's just one of the world-class Calvadoses out there, so you can't go wrong. You really can't. And we're going to be finishing off this piece here. You'll notice that he'll mention Jérôme, his son, who sadly passed away in 2018 and is deeply missed, and certainly his contribution to the world of cider and Calvados worldwide will never be forgotten. I put a link in the show notes to episode 98 that I recorded with Jérôme Dupont. He gives a wonderful overview of Domaine Dupont and the history. But let's continue now with this final excerpt from my recording with Étienne Dupont in 2020. And the bitter, yeah, you don't want it too bitter.
No. I do not like bitterness. I prefer fruitiness. But it's not a default, it's a choice.
It's a choice, right. I'm not getting bitter there.
C'est mieux, oui.
No bitter, yeah.
C'est bien, oui.
I'm going to guess that's a Dupont. Is that
Yes.
Dupont? Yeah, that's a 20. That's fantastic.
It's still a little bit bitter. And in our orchards now, Jérôme did planted 50% apple with acidity and 50% apple with bitterness. And the regulation says 80%, 20%. So we are going to be less bitter. But the gymnastic is quite long because you plant the apple trees, you wait for 5 years, you get the apples, you produce the cider, and you wait for 10 years to have the Calvados.
Right.
So when you come back in 20 years, you will, I won't be there, but you will.
You never know.
You will ask Marie.
was a Calvados tasting with Étienne Dupont of Domaine Dupont. In the show notes to this here episode 337, you will find both links to Domaine Dupont and the new cider store in Caen called Les Cidroloques. You could check that out at ciderchat.com. And I certainly hope that you are inspired to seek out Calvados, do a tasting of Calvados and apple brandy, and look for those three sources of aroma: the fruit, the yeast, and the cask. Or maybe just drink it and enjoy yourself. It's all good. As always, I give a tip of my glass to the folks who support this podcast every month via the Cider Chat Patreon page. You too can become a patron too by just searching for Patreon. That's spelled Patreon, Cider Chat. And with that, Ciderville, I leave you here. This is Rio Windcaller signing off for now. Looking forward to seeing you in Ciderville.
We like cider, we like palms, we love orchards and having fun. There is a reason why we do it like this. Oh yes there is. There is a reason why we do it like this. Oh yes there is. There is a reason why we drink it like this. Oh yes there is a reason. We like walking through the orchards, dancing in the streets, smelling all the blossoms, kicking up our feet. We like cider, we like palms, we like orchards, having some fun. There is a reason why we do it like this. Oh yes there is. There is a reason why we do it like this. Oh yes there is. There is a reason why we drink it like this. Oh yes there is. There is a reason. We like walking through the orchards, dancing in the streets, smelling all the blossoms, kicking up our feet. Oh yeah. We like cider. Oh yes we do. We like palms. Oh yes we do. We love orchards, having some fun. There is a reason why we do it like this. Ba-da-da-dum. There is a reason why we do it like this. Ba-da-da-dum. There is a reason why we drink it like this. Ba-da-da-dum. Ba-da-da-dum. We like walking down the orchards, dancing in the streets, smelling all the blossoms, kicking up our feet. Oh yeah. We like cider. Ba-da-da-dum. We like palms. Oh yes we do. We like orchards, having some fun.
Yeehaw!